Welcome to the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with Rodney Gage. Rodney is a pastor, speaker, author, and leader with a passion for helping families. Today, he'll be discussing his newest book release, The Double Win, and why it's so important as leaders to learn to win both at work and at home. So buckle up your leadership seatbelts and let's get started. Hey, everybody. We are back on the AVAIL podcast. Yes, we're back with another amazing leader, a pastor, somebody who's going to give us some resources and some insight in how we can win in life in all the areas, in all the important areas. We are with none other than Rodney Gage. Pastor Rodney, it's good to have you here on the AVAIL podcast. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Virgil, man, you are one of my favorites. It is an honor to be with you. So excited to just be a part of this amazing podcast with you and the entire AVAIL team. So thrilled and honored.
Yes, sir. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and your wife on different pastors retreats that we've been on and different conferences that we've connected at. This is going to be a joy, and I'm excited about kind of delving into your new book, an amazing book, which is called The Double Win. We're going to get to that in a moment. But before that, I know there's some AVAIL listeners and viewers who are maybe asking themselves, who's Rodney Gage? So can you talk to us a little bit about, maybe give us the quick summary of who you are, where you came from, what you're doing, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
That's right. It's $1 million question. Like, who is this guy? Well, thanks for asking. I've been in ministry for over 30 years. And sometimes, it's kind of like serving like Moses. He found himself on the backside of a desert for many, many years. But that's interesting because I come from a family of ministers. My dad was a preacher. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My wife, Michelle, on the other hand, she's the oldest of 4 girls. Her dad is also, or her dad, who's now with the Lord, but he was also a pastor for many, many years. And so super long story short, we were set up on a blind date by our parents and
Wow.
of all things. And so when I met Michelle for the first time, man, it was love at first sight. I was blind, but now I see. And so God opened up my eyes and I said yes to her. And so, it was that was the beginning of our marriage and, of course, our ministry calling together. We started a church over 20 years ago in Orlando, Florida. Prior to us planning a church, we traveled extensively across the country and other places around the world for about 15 years before, God really put that call on our hearts to plant a church. And so we left the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have 3 kids. At the time when we left the Metroplex there in Dallas, we had a 4-year-old little girl, a 2-year-old little girl, and a little boy that was 8 months in the oven. So Michelle, bless her heart, Michelle was 8 months pregnant when we packed up the moving truck and moved from Dallas to Orlando to embark upon a dream and a journey of starting a church. And we've been going at it ever since. So that's really kind of the nutshell of about 30 years, of doing ministry and doing local church. But through it all, Virgil, one of the things that's been cool is just see, lives touched, impacted, just getting to see it kind of on both sides, of the fence, as an itinerant speaker, an author, but at the same time, being in the trenches with the local church and getting your your hands dirty and doing the real stuff of ministry, just working with people and walking with people through, the highs and lows of life. And we've just been blessed, been very fortunate to be able to help, make a difference in as many people's lives as we possibly can.
That's great. I'll just mention for those who are maybe leaning in and wondering what church it is, it's ReThink Church in Orlando. Awesome church. If you're ever in the Orlando area, if you're ever visiting, the big parks and you want to have church, check out ReThink Church. I'm excited, Pastor Rodney, to talk about your new book, which is entitled The Double Win. And I know it's all about these kind of 8 key questions, but why don't you just unpack it for us? Share with us, what's the heart behind this book? What does the double win mean? And kind of unpack the heart behind it as we get into some Q&A about it, as we talk about some of those important questions so that we can have the double win.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for asking the question. Yeah, behind every book, is really an idea, or it's a burden that you have, or maybe it's just a solution to a problem that a lot of people are facing. And I think, honestly, this kind of encompasses all of those because, as a pastor, but also as a parent, walking through where many people walk on that day-to-day, balance of the tension, between work, between home, the work life demands and all that entails. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a marketplace leader, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a pastor, it doesn't matter what vocation you may have, when you're married and you have kids, there's real day-to-day challenges. There's a lot of things you have to work through, navigate, big decisions that have to be made, all of the stresses and struggles that go with it. But at the same time, one of the things that I've learned just from pastoring a lot of people and working with a lot of people and just listening, I think more than anything, to the stresses and the struggles a lot of people face, many people have just found, especially as they get into that season of their life where their career and their family life really begins to collide. And that's where we find a lot of people really struggling with that tension. So much so that the stress becomes unbearable because they have so much demand at work, the long hours, the expectations. And then many are obviously maybe in a season where they're trying to grow, in their career, grow and advance and prosper in that way. But at the same time, at home, they have, their spouse, they have their children, they're trying to manage all the moving parts. They're like 2 ships passing in the night, sometimes just trying to figure out how to make the rhythms of their world work. And over time, what happens, a lot of times the stress can really cause a major setback in the marriage. It can not only create a lot of stress because of the financial challenges, or maybe just the hardships of just trying to carry the weight of it all. What we find a lot of times is the marriage begins to suffer, or maybe something begins to work its way into the family related to some of the kids with, wrong influences, things that they're being exposed to, distractions, the list goes on and on. So really it came down to some research that I started doing related to the toll that is being felt on so many people's lives. And stress in and of itself is a major, major stress toll on somebody's physical well-being, obviously their health, spiritual life, their relationships, just all the things that combine into those various stresses. But what's interesting is that approximately about 120,000 deaths occur every single year that would be associated with stress-related deaths. That's pretty staggering to me. You got $190 billion every year in health cost, healthcare cost. So when you look at what, the employers have to carry when it comes to the financial repercussions that, they have to absorb because of the distractions that one of their employees may be having, from work. So it's really kind of the premise, Virgil. If you're not winning at home, chances are you're not winning at work. And if you're not winning at work, chances are you're not winning at home. But the question is, can there be a win-win? Could you potentially reorchestrate and reprioritize and restructure your life where you can win at work and can win at home, so you can have that double win effect? And so what I did in the book is we just broke it down into some very penetrating, thought-provoking questions to help that process begin with the conversations that maybe a spouse needs to have, maybe with a coworker, maybe with an employee, with an employer, maybe with their own spouse, but to begin making the necessary adjustments in their lives so that they can begin to experience the double win.
I think it's so natural to think that you got to sacrifice one. You got to go for one and sacrifice the other. I think a lot of people, and even if we look back at history, if we look at people and leaders, it seems like sometimes people win at home and family, but then they sacrifice and they don't really get the dreams that they were aspiring for. Or people think, you know what, I'm going to go for that. And then if I go for that, well, I'm going to have to sacrifice my family or the expectations at home.
Sure.
And what I love about your new book is you're proposing, what if we can win at both, right? What if we can win at work and at life?
Right.
What if we can win, out, with our responsibilities as far as career or ministry or whatever, leadership, but then also win at home and both, not either or, but both and. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's the goal. You don't have to sacrifice one or even really choose one over the other. I mean, obviously winning at home, and this is just a firm conviction that I have, and there's a lot of data that support this. In fact, I love what, Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, once said, and I would be safe to say he was pretty successful. we all love Chick-fil-A, right? So,
Yes.
multi-billion-dollar operation. So I would say they've achieved some success. But yet he basically helped champion this in many ways, and he closed down, obviously, there's stores on Sunday to put the priority for his employees to be with their families, and make Sundays a priority. So the point of the matter is, his whole premise is that you cannot have a successful organization or company business if your employees are not doing well at home. So, it's important that we realize that being strong spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally, physically in our lives, and really establishing that foundation in our relationships at home is going to help us thrive. We're going to be far more effective when it comes to how we perform at work when we have a really rock solid, when we're emotionally and spiritually and relationally healthy at home. So you can achieve both. But I think it comes down to working through some things in a person's life, and especially if they're married or even in a blended family situation where they come together, get on the same page. But what I've learned is that they need a plan. They need a framework or kind of a guideline or a roadmap that will help them kind of think through some of the things that need to be thought through so that they can develop that win-win strategy. And so that's what the book basically does. It provides a framework of questions for a couple to work through.
That's great. So here's what I want to do, Pastor Rodney. Obviously, it's impossible to go into all of them, but maybe you can just highlight what are those 8 questions everyone must ask to win at work and at home? And then maybe let's delve into a few of the ones that you kind of have on your heart that we could just kind of unpack a little bit for all the leaders that are tuning in.
Absolutely. Well, there's 8 questions total that we've put together. And really the introduction of the book it's called a no-win situation. And I'm kind of just sharing out of my own personal testimony in the introduction of the book about my circumstances where my wife had to call me out, because of, me burning the candle at both ends and sacrificing my family because I was trying to launch a church. And so I kind of get transparent in the introduction of the book. But from that, it leads to really the first question. That was what we call the motives question. And the double win principle, every question has a principle that is built around. So behind, for example, the motives question is the principle, know your why. So we're all driven by something. We're all motivated by something. But what are those motivations? What is truly driving you? And are the things that are driving you, are they healthy or are they unhealthy? Are they pure, impure? There's a real underlying motivation that drives all of us. And so what we have to really think beyond is, what is our why? Why are we driven the way we are to do what we do at home, at work? And
Mm.
are the ways that we're going about accomplishing that, is it in a healthy, productive way? But when we think about our true why and the greater purpose, then that allows us to begin to be motivated by a more pure, intentional way that helps us to achieve a greater purpose in our life. The next is what I call the beliefs question. And the double win principle there is really helping you understand what it is that's bringing joy and happiness to your life. And the principle is happiness is a choice. So the problem is a lot of people believe that their work and the success of their work, or maybe their relationship with their spouse or an individual, is going to make them happy. But at the end of the day, Christ is the only one who makes us happy. Our relationship with God is the only one he is the only one who can bring lasting joy and happiness to our lives. The others help support and supplement that, but he is the ultimate source of that. The third question is the dream question. And the dream question is that where are we going with our life? What is that preferred future that we want for our career, for our marriage, for our kids? And we get so focused on the destination, and the principle, the double win principle is that life's a journey, not a destination. So we can't get so focused on the destination about the big dream we're trying to accomplish, that we're so driven to achieve, that we forget the journey. We forget the little wins along the way that we can celebrate and that we can enjoy in the process. Another question is the values question. And the values question, the double win principle really behind that is this. It's significance is more important than success. So we all know, I think one of our mutual friends, Sam Chan, once said, you can build a ladder, and climb your way all the way up to the top of the ladder, thinking that you have arrived, only to realize that your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with a lot of people, is they confuse success with significance. So it really comes down to, what do you want to be known for? And your values is really help shape and identify who you ultimately become. And that's true success. Expectations question. And the expectations question is who is doing what? When it comes to the shared responsibilities at home. So, in the world in which we're living today, you have so many solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, you got people in the corporate, workplace, marketplace, business owners. Sometimes you got, stay-at-home mom, you've got a stay-at-home dad, you've got, both working parents in the marketplace, a lot of moving parts. So who does what? How do you set expectations in your home so that you're winning and you're working together collectively as a team? It's the old saying, teamwork, so dream work, And then from there, we go to the success question. And that is, how do you define the win? So how do you know if you're winning in your marriage with your kid? How do you know if you're winning in your career? It's more than just a bank account. How do you define that win? And a lot of people struggle with that. And the principle behind that is that those who know me best love me the most. And so, we're just trying to help people understand the true motivations, again, behind the win. And then we end the book with the legacy question. And the legacy question is how will I influence future generations? And the double win principle there is what you leave in your kids is more important than what you leave for your kids.
So good.
So all of those things, Virgil, those 8 questions are thought-provoking questions that everybody needs to ask at some point so that they can begin to filter their daily decisions, their calendars, their values, their priorities through that grid so that they can achieve the double win both at work and at home.
Yeah, I think this book is huge. And I think this concept is so important because I don't know that there's anybody who in their heart wants to win at only one. And yet, however, it seems like many times that's the case, right? You know, a person is doing amazing in their career, in the profession, you know, in their, even in ministry, and their home is falling apart, you know, or a person, you know, really pours into their family, and then they feel like, oh, I haven't been able to really reach my potential, or I feel like that's made me drag in my profession. Nobody wants to win at only one, but yet it seems like so many people don't win at both. So I love this. Can you maybe unpack a few of these questions? I know we can't, you did a great job of kind of describing them, but maybe the motives question. You know, you talked about how that was something you really had to kind of evaluate in the beginning of the journey that God had for you at planning a church and all that. Let's talk a little bit about the motives question.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really helps with that whole issue is how do you build margin into your life? Margin is one of those things that's easy to preach and hard to live, you know. We can get up all day. We can get up and, you know, and tell people, man, you just got to do this. You just got to do this. But it's so hard to live. It truly is. Yeah. I mean, I'm preaching to myself here. And that's why I shared, you know, the story that I shared in the introduction of the book, because, you know, we were launching a church, you know, young family, Michelle, you know, a mom juggling, you know, a newborn. We got, you know, 2 little girls, and they needed their daddy. And, you know, I'm trying to shake and bake and cast vision and mobilize and recruit, you know, the volunteers and build teams and meet with this group and meet with those people. And, you know, and then Sundays come and I got to prepare. And so I was just in this grind, you know, and I knew that there would probably be a day when the dust would settle and things would get supposedly, you know, to a place where, you know, things would normal out, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And so one day, you know, my wife, Michelle, she was getting ready to take the kids out to a park. It was on a Saturday, you know, and she peeped in my study and she said, "Are you going to be able to come with us?" And she already knew the answer. I said, "No, I'm not going to be able to go." And she kind of just gave me that look, you know, that a spouse can give, you know, and she said, well, here's what you need to know. She said, "You can be the pastor of this church, or you can be the father to your children." But she said, you cannot do both unless something changes. And that kind of rocked my world as it related to how I was going to preach my sermon on Sunday. Because it was that reality that I can't just keep putting that off and putting that off, thinking that, you know, things are going to get better or things are going to slow down or things are going to get easier. Because in reality, they don't. You just go from one season, you go from one stage of expectations, you know, new pressures, you know, as the old saying, new levels, you have to deal with new devils, you know. So every tier in life, every stage in life has got a whole new set of expectations and challenges. So you have to get control of that. And margin is the key to building that into your life and into your calendar, into your relationships. So you don't confuse activity with accomplishment and you don't live with regret, because nobody starts out, as you stated earlier, Virgil, nobody starts out on their wedding day saying, you know what, hey, 7 years from now, you know, let's ride this thing. And then 7 years from now, we'll just kind of go our separate ways. You know, or nobody says, hey, 10 years from now, after our kids are born, you know, chances are the wheels will come off and they'll make a bunch of bad decisions. Nobody has those intentions, but when they happen, it rocks our world. And then what happens is that we're left with guilt and all the should'ves and could'ves and the remorse and the regret. So we don't have to live with that. You know, that doesn't need to be our story. And to finish this thought, Virgil, if it is somebody's story, the good news is that yesterday ended last night. So that means tomorrow's pages are blank. And that simply means that today we can start making some new decisions, make some adjustments, make some, you know, restructure some things. And we can't become who we need to be by remaining who we are. So we have to make some changes in order to become, ultimately who we desire to become, as a spouse, as a leader, as a parent. And so that motive question is a big, big question. It really is.
You don't want to miss this month at AVAIL, or any month for that matter. Why? Because each month, the AVAIL Online Leadership Series happens, a live call with leaders from around the world who have a passion for God and key leadership insights to impart to you. Interact with authors, pastors, and influencers from every industry. And the best part, it's free. To get registered right now, head over to theartofleadership.com. What are you waiting for? Yeah, I think it's an important question. And I think if we don't ask ourselves that question as leaders, as pastors, as, even marketplace leaders, we're going to find something we'll be suffering, and hopefully it won't be too late, right? Important question. Something that caught my attention when you were kind of highlighting them was also the values question, right? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah.
You talk to us a little bit about why that's so important.
Yeah. Well, our values is what ultimately defines who we become. And the priorities that we all say are important to us really are driven from our values. So when you think about our values, the values is everything. You think about what Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount. He wrapped up his sermon, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. He wraps up his sermon by giving an illustration about two guys. One guy built his house on sand. The other guy built his house on the rock. Both experienced the same circumstances, wind, rain, floods, but one was swept away and one still stood strong. The only difference between the two were the foundations. So one was built on values and one was built on the temporal things of the world. The values of God's word, the unchanging truths of God's word was the thing that gave the stability and the consistency and the resiliency to stand strong against all the things that were going to come against it. But the one who built it on the sand, was the one who reaped the ultimate consequences. So what do we want to be known for? Do we want to be known for the temporary things that everybody else thinks is important? Or do we want to be known for people who are known for our character, our values, how we live our lives, how we treat people? Do we make good on our promises? Do we actually follow through and do the things that we promise people we will do? When people associate our name, what do they associate it with? Is there a positive reputation? Is there something that people walk away and say, man, that person or that couple or that family, wow, they are such an incredible inspiration. What do we want to be known for? Well, we don't just show up and arrive at that point. We have to work towards building that in our lives. And so it's built on those values. And I like to call them non-negotiables. So you have to figure out in your life, in your marriage, in your family relationships, and even at work, what are the non-negotiables that are going to set us apart, that will allow me to be known for certain values. And, no matter what temptations, no matter how big of opportunities may be presented, if they violate those non-negotiables, we don't say yes. We don't go there. So,
sure.
In the priority section of the book, I say it this way: a good thing can become a bad thing if it keeps you from the bad thing. So it's just navigating through all of those dynamics in life that allows us to really build our lives and build our marriage and build our careers on values that are going to last forever. And I think we're just living in a value deficit culture in society today. And it's lacking greatly. I think COVID exposed that in so many ways, and so it's lacking in the workplace. It's lacking in our schools, our culture. It's lacking, sadly and unfortunately, in many of our homes. So we have to build that back into our everyday lives and into our families.
That's good. I think there's obviously a very high correlation and connection between values and then the next one, which is the priorities question. But at the same time, this is a word that comes up a lot, even when I have conversations with my wife, priorities, which specifically in your book, what's important to you, and what should be most important. Can you talk a little bit about the priorities question?
Yeah. Priorities is a, it's kind of interesting conversation when you have those priorities conversations, whether it's with your spouse or your kids or, with people at work, because everybody has what they perceive to be things that are important. But it's like you were saying, if everything's important, then chances are nothing's important. So if we're always saying yes to everything or people or whatever, then we're not really living out our priorities. That's why the values question is so important. But with all that said, when you think about the word priorities, there's the word prior is there for a reason. Mm-hmm. So it's knowing what our priorities are prior to saying yes to a lot of things or a lot of people. Because what happens is if we don't know what our answer is going to be prior to, opportunities that present themselves, then what happens is we get caught up in what I call the itties of life. So it's the priorities, but the itties is what sabotages, the priorities that we know and we want to be most important. So there's usually a gap between what we say is important to us and what our commitments and our calendars usually reveal. And what we have to do is we have to close that gap between what we say is important and what our calendars, what our pocketbook, what our schedules actually reveal. So those things are important conversations that couples need to have, families need to have. And that's where a lot of, I think, young families get kind of caught up in the trap of wanting to expose their kids to a lot of different things. And there may not be anything wrong with all those things, dance, soccer, piano, football, the list goes on and on and on. But you really do so much. There's only so many hours in the day. And that's where I think a lot of times many couples, many families, even people at work, again, confuse the activities with accomplishment because they're so busy that they don't have time really for each other. And you probably have heard it said, the word busy, there's an acronym for that, and it stands for being under Satan's yoke. So if we're not careful, all those things can choke out, the things that are most important in our lives. So it's always easier to get into something than it is to get out of something.
I think my wife is going to love this podcast because it sounds like this is her heart when she's dealing with me and I'm trying to pack more things in and do more things. But, I think there's also something to say about the importance, especially in marriage, right? How we need to be listening to each other and understand each other's needs, the family's needs, that we have. I think it's easy sometimes, especially if we're driven leaders, if we have goals and aspirations, we can catch ourselves kind of flying and going, but losing track of some things. And I imagine you would probably testify to that, right? The importance of that kind of that marriage relationship and communication as we're considering all these questions.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the problem is that that's one of the consequences of stress. So when we're saying yes to a lot of things, we're busy. We got a lot of responsibilities, got a lot of plates that are spinning. We're carrying a heavy weight of responsibilities. All the expectations that are placed upon us. Because of that, we can only handle that pace for so long before it begins to take a toll. So that's where we may not be taking ourselves seriously in terms of self-care with our health, and exercise and just mentally and emotionally. And so what happens is we're running a lot of times just on kind of like thin ice, and we're irritable. We may not be getting the sleep we should be getting, the exercise we should be getting. And so we're short with people, we're irritable with our kids, we're not fun to be with or be around, we're in work mode all the time. And listen, I'm preaching to myself. It's easy for those of us, the choleric personality, who's go, 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 do, do, do. Let's build this. Let's conquer that. But it's like what Jesus said, what shall it profit a man if he should gain the whole world, lose his own soul, lose his own marriage, lose his own family? So that goes back to how you define the win. That's the success question in the book. So what do we want to be known for? That's the values question of the book. So all these things play into the real day-to-day reality of where we all live. We're in the trenches dealing with this stuff, and I just see too many casualties, Virgil, and my burden and what my prayer is that, as you stated at the very beginning, we don't have to choose one or the other.
Yeah, that's good.
We can find a way to achieve the double win. And we may have to stop doing some things, and we may need to start doing some things based on those things that are most important to us and to our marriage and to our kids. So those are some hard questions, and that's why these are questions that we put in the book. If anything, just to begin having conversations, because a lot of times, a lot of couples, they don't even know where to start,
Yep.
And if anything, this just helps open that door to have some heartfelt conversations and start thinking about ways that they can begin making change, restructuring some things.
Yeah.
Going through some of the exercises that we've placed in the book too, to where they can start identifying their core values, identifying what the win is going to look like, answering the question, what do they want to be known for? What kind of legacy do they want to leave, for their kids, and what do they want to leave in their kids? So a lot of good conversations can be had just from working through these 8 questions.
Yeah, I love it. In a moment, we're going to let people know the website they can go for, obviously how to get the book, but even more resources that are kind of connected to the book. But before that, maybe let's just kind of close off this conversation with kind of the whole aspect of looking to the future. There's those 2 questions, the success question, right? And the legacy question. Maybe if we can just touch on those 2 as we get to the final stretch, and then let people know about where they can find these resources and what's available for them. Success and legacy. Yeah.
I think success, and again, the double win principle for the success question is when it comes to understanding the whole journey of life, it's not just all about the destination. It's not about the win and then the then. A lot of people have the win and then disease of, when this happens, then I'll be happy, or when I get to that place, then we'll start having more of that. And I think the problem is that we have a tendency to think that if we can just arrive at a certain place, that in our mind equates to success. If it's a certain salary, figure, income that we're making, if it's, getting the beach condo or ski lodge or, whatever material thing that we think, is going to be the measure of success, whatever that is. At the end of the day, the question is, am I fulfilled? Is my life truly bringing significance and fulfillment? Am I really feeling gratified and satisfied by how I've spent my life? Because at the end of the day, again, how do we define the win? And it's not that any of those things are bad. Not sure. I hope nobody misunderstands what I'm saying, because I'm not saying that all those things are associated with bad or, it's wrong or evil to have those things. I know a lot of people who have all those things and are living lives of great significance because they put it in perspective. They know that God has blessed them with those high levels of success and accomplishment so that they can live out a life of significance by being a even greater blessing to other people, advancing the cause of Christ, sowing into other ministries. And so I think it comes down to that. A person has got to understand what success means and how they define that. And then back to the legacy, and we'll close with this, and that is, at the end of the day, those people in my life, my spouse, my children, one day, grandchildren, what do we want those people? I hate to go morbid here, but if they were attending our funeral service, what would they be saying about us? How did we shape their life? What kind of imprint did we have on who they have become? What kind of legacy, not just in what we left in terms of, bank accounts and inheritances and all of that, but what did we leave in them that they in turn are going to live out in their own families, that they're going to instill in their own children, so that generationally we're making an impact that's going to last forever. And so that's the goal. And I think that's God's vision, when it comes to, we're placed here on this earth for a greater purpose than just the here and the now, for the 70, 80 years, however long God allows us to live here on planet Earth. Everything we do here is just a dress rehearsal for what we're going to do forever. So let's make the most of what we have, and let's make the most with the time that God has given us to make an impact on as many people as we possibly can for God's glory and for generations to come, so that they can continue to pass on those same values, character traits to their children and grandchildren. That's the third and fourth generational impact that the Bible teaches us.
What a great thing to be thinking about that so many people I don't think have thought about, which is the importance of true success and true legacy. Man, this is awesome. Here's what I want to do. Pastor Rodney. First of all, how can people connect with you? This is a day of social media. Some leaders do it, some leaders don't. Can they find you on social media?
They can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all of those different platforms. Just my name, Rodney Gage. So they can just go to Rodney Gage, Instagram, Facebook. And then we've put together a website. We have a ministry called The Winning Family. So the domain there is just thewinningfamily.com. So they go to thewinningfamily.com, and there are resources. We've put together some tools. There are events that we are doing. We're rolling out some double win events, both for marketplace leaders as well as in the church, to come alongside and help. Because I really do believe those two worlds come together in an incredible way. And so I think, those people sitting in our seats, especially those who are in the church, they have the greatest opportunity of all to go into the marketplace and to live out these truths and these principles into the marketplace. So we can come alongside and help those in the marketplace with businesses, companies, corporations. We can come alongside and speak into this as well as into the local church. And then just to helping couples, helping parents. So all these tools and resources are on thewinningfamily.com.
Very good. Everybody, you heard it, thewinningfamily.com. Something cool about the book, The Double Win, is I believe on that page, people are also going to be able to access, whether it's part of the program that you're offering. There's masterclass videos that you've done in connection with the Double Win. I know there's a companion study guide that goes along with the book. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So whether you want to go through the book as an individual or maybe do a book club, grab some coworkers, do a lunch and learn with some friends at work. Maybe it's a small group at church. So we've put together some of those tools to serve as a great small group exercise, or just, like I said, maybe a lunch and learn at work. Grab some friends, you work through the book together, watch the videos. And again, these are great tools to help just spark conversation, to dive a little deeper. We've got something called the Double Win Club. And what that is, it's a monthly subscription where people can be a part of that. And with that, it's kind of more of an exclusive circle, if you will, of people who just want to have ongoing support and resources. And so I do a live monthly coaching or mentoring call. My wife, Michelle, and I do that. We have something goes into your inbox every Monday called the Winning Word, just a word for the week to kind of shift the atmosphere of your work and your home atmosphere. Just a lot of different things like that we build into what we call the Double Win Club. And so those are some tools and resources we've put together so that we can just help people win at work, win at home, and ultimately win at life.
Love it. You guys heard it. TheWinningFamily.com. The Double Win Club is an option if you want to just delve in deep with Pastor Rodney and his resources and his ministry. This is awesome. I want to just add, Pastor Rodney, like for people, just having resources for leadership is so helpful, and for family and for life. Speaking of resources, we have the AVAIL Journal. I know you're familiar with the AVAIL Journal. I know you're connected to the AVAIL and Inspire families as well. What do you think? How important is it for leaders to consume quality leadership resources?
Well, I think we've all heard it said. I think John Maxwell may have said it. He may have been the originator. I don't know who originated this statement, but leaders are readers. And, and so that's true. We're only as good as what we, sow into ourselves. So we can't give what we don't have. So, man, I strongly recommend the articles, man, just the nuggets, the interviews, those magazines have are priceless. And for pastors, there's unbelievable, great sermon, material in there too. So, man, it's, it's just an incredible tool and resource to bring, I think, if anything, just inspiration, ideas. There's a lot of thought-provoking, lessons when it comes to just developing and growing in all aspects of leadership and in our influence. And so I love it. It's an incredible resource.
Yes. So everybody listening or watching or both, make sure if you haven't done so yet, you can claim your free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal by going to availjournal.com. Availjournal.com. We want to put it in your hands. Free annual subscription. You're going to have amazing resources here. Don't miss out on that. It's time to close off here, Rodney. This has been a great conversation. I want to do kind of quick 5-second answers. There's like 2 or 3 that I have here, maybe 4 or 5 that I have here. And if you'd like to pass, you can pass. Are you ready for this real quick, Rodney?
Let's do it.
All right. First, what makes you laugh?
Oh, man. We have our kids, we're on a group. We do this little group thing, those the reels, like on Instagram. There are some things that are so stinking funny, and we will just laugh, and then we'll we'll send each other those things. So we like to just have fun, crazy little stuff like that we enjoy doing. I love watching funny movies, Dumb and Dumber, those type shows. So nothing like a good Jim Carrey movie.
Okay. Hobby. What do you do to have fun?
Oh man, I love to work out, exercise. I was on the Stairmaster this morning. I love to play tennis. Love to be outside. Love to be around the beach, the water. That's my jam.
Cool. Any hidden talents that people don't know about you?
Well, I don't know if some are watching this, some are listening to it. If you're watching it, I've always been known for this trick right here. When I walk around and I do that with the kids, it's children's ministry, I can get a captive audience real quick. So
yeah, that's the magic of the finger that looks like you're pulling it off.
Yes.
I like that. And then last thing, what encourages you right now about church and leaders? What's encouraging to you?
What's encouraging to me right now is coming out of COVID, man, we get a blue sky opportunity, to reinvent, to reimagine, to recreate, to redo, whatever RE you want to put in there. It's a season of, man, as an entrepreneur, creative, outside the box, innovator. I mean, this is the ultimate time to be alive. And I'm excited for the next generation too. So God's up to something, and he's preparing us, positioning us, getting us ready. And so I'm pumped.
So good. We're gonna wrap things up here. If you had just a little final nugget to leave on all the leaders' hearts right now as we close off, what would it be, Rodney?
I would encourage, no matter who you are, without question, my heart is the family. So goes the family, so goes everything else. Mm-hmm. And, whether you're, a single parent, whether you're a blended family, single again, whether, you're just starting out, as a couple or as a young family, whatever you do, bring God into your family life and into those most important relationships. If you could sow your time and sow your energy into one area, don't forsake your family. Don't forsake your marriage. So goes the family. So goes everything else.
So good. Words of wisdom from Pastor Rodney Gage. Pastor Rodney, on behalf of Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn Van Tilburg, the whole AVAIL team, we just want to say we're thankful for your life. We honor you, and we bless what the Lord is doing in you and through you.
Thank you, Virgil. Likewise, blessings to you and your precious family and your amazing ministry. And we thank the world of you and the whole entire AVAIL team. So it's an honor to be a part of this awesome podcast.
Thank you, sir. Hey, everybody. I hope you've been encouraged. This is the Double Win new book by Pastor Rodney Gage. This is a must get for your leadership and family and life resources. The Double Win. Remember, thewinningfamily.com is a place where you can find more of those resources with Rodney Gage. Love having you here, everybody, and can't wait to see you next time right here on the AVAIL podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL podcast. We hope you've been equipped by this conversation with Rodney Gage. Remember, you can connect with Rodney on social media and at thewinningfamily.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. And if you'd like to connect to our growing leadership community on Facebook, visit availleadershipconnect.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL media host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.